Okay, here we are, the next day. It's light out. I've gone on the other side of the bike and I've loosened the adjusting screw for the clutch rod. Clutch rod's the thing that runs all the way through the cases. This is what I'm talking about right here. I loosened the fixing nut and I backed this off. That looks like somebody maybe replaced that at some point. That looks a little bodged up. But I backed that off sufficiently to allow me to put on the clutch arm. And I have not drilled this plunger piece, the face of that plunger piece yet, and I've not put the ball bearing in there yet. What I'm doing now is I hooked it up so that I can operate the clutch back and forth like this, and where that clutch rod contacts the face of the plunger bit, it's scraping back and forth a bit, it's marking it. I'm going to use that marking to guide myself when I drill for where the ball bearing should go, and that should allow me to locate it properly so that the only thing that contacts the clutch arm is the ball bearing, and that it doesn't slip off the ball bearing and contact the face of the plunger. I just want it to be in contact with the ball bearing. And that's how I'm marking it to drill. Just a little extra bit of wisdom for you here. These access caps, a big fender washer that costs like 10 cents at the hardware store, fits these perfectly. So use that to screw them open and shut. You can see that over the years this has gotten mangled, people using screwdrivers and things that don't work. What you want is a big flat fender washer like this. Works great. I have been grinding away the length of this plunger. I intentionally made it slightly too tall to start with, and the idea was to get the clutch rod, which is this piece right here sticking through the case, to contact the face of that plunger right dead center. And because it was too tall when I started, it was contacting it too far over here, which is fine because I could shorten it, and as I shortened it, the way that the plunger moves through that arch, as I shortened it, the contact point moves towards the center. So I'd grind a little thou off, a little thousandth of an inch here, and keep testing it. And now I've had it in there, and you can see that it's contacting the face of that plunger just about dead center. I've got the plunger unit filed down to the level I want it at. I drilled a pilot hole with a small drill bit, and then I followed that pilot hole with a 3/16 drill bit because I'm going to be putting a 3/16, come back here, 3/16 ball bearing in the end of it, like that. Then I'm going to take this nice punch, I'm going to punch the metal on either side of that ball bearing, and that'll squeeze just a little extra metal towards that ball bearing, grabbing it and locking it in place. The bearing should still be able to roll a bit, but it'll be trapped in there so it won't fall out when you take out the clutch rod. I think you can see that it's not perfectly dead center. That's not too surprising. You know, I wasn't very precise about when I cut the notch and when I cut the metal, but that is exactly the spot where the clutch arm rubs on the face of this thing. So I know that's the spot where that ball bearing needs to be. So now I'm going to punch it and hold it in place. I'm going to have to do that with the camera shut off because I can't do both at the same time. Okay, I just made the two punches. This lighting is not the best for this, I realize. Yeah, just doesn't get more precise. All right, but here was my thinking about this. You can see the groove is there. The clutch arm face is going to be moving like this, in this direction. So I put the dimples on either side of the ball bearing here and here so that it would have less rolling resistance in this plane as opposed to putting them on either side like this, where they'll have more rolling resistance because that's where the metal's pinching the ball bearing. Then this is what it looks like. There's this piece that's riveted to the clutch arm that's just a bolt with a hinge on it. That just screws right into the case. And it's not terribly difficult to get in or out. At least this one wasn't. It's not the kind of item that would come loose because both ends of it are secured, one end by these threads, the other end by the clutch cable. So you can see the ball bearing standing out of there, nice big fat ball bearing. And the only thing that comes into contact with the end of the clutch rod is that ball bearing. I hope you can see this, but the only thing that contacts that clutch rod is the ball bearing that's standing out of the end of that plunger unit. It doesn't slip to and fro on the ball bearing. The ball bearing is almost dead center on that clutch rod. I couldn't be happier with the result. But I did this very slowly with a lot of hand tools and slowly snuck up on where it needed to be, which is probably why I had such a good result with it. So go slow and take your time if you're doing something like this. And if you mess up the first one and get frustrated, you might want to try it again. Or you might want to take it to a professional at a machine shop if you don't have the patience to do something like this. But here I've turned a 95-cent linchpin and, you know, a 19-cent ball bearing into a repair. The most expensive part was to have the welder fix the little notch that was in the clutch arm itself, and that was about $10. No, that was $20, I'm sorry. $20 for the welder. So the entire repair here, maybe I have $25 in it, including the drill bit that I had to buy.